So friends, sometimes the most damning evidence in a criminal trial is not necessarily the most directly incriminating evidence in a criminal trial. As we make our way into week 3 of Donald Trump's first criminal trial, let's talk about the upcoming testimony of Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, we're about to enter week 3 of Donald Trump's first criminal trial, his first of 4. Week 1 was jury selection. Week 2 was the first week of trial testimony. And week 3 might see the testimony of Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. And that could be some of the most damning evidence in the eyes of the jury, even if it's not the most directly incriminating evidence on the 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. But let's start with the new reporting. This from USA Today. Headline, Trump trial schedule, latest on the trial and what you should expect this week. And that article begins, former President Donald Trump's hush money trial is on break Monday, but court will reconvene Tuesday morning. Although the jurors and lawyers typically gather on Monday mornings, Judge Juan Merchan ruled last week that there would be no proceedings today, Monday. Trump faces 34 counts of falsifying business records to disguise the hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels that allegedly constituted an illegal campaign contribution. Here is what to know as Trump's trial continues into week 3. Week 2 ended during third witness testimony. Jurors heard from 3 witnesses last week. First, David Pecker, former head of the National Enquirer's parent company, testified about how he used the publication to write positive stories about Trump and prevent negative stories about him from coming out during his 2016 presidential campaign. His testimony and cross-examination spanned 3 days. He also said his editor-in-chief believed Stormy Daniels' story about an alleged sexual encounter in 2006, which Donald Trump denies. Put a pin in that, friends. Trump's former executive assistant, Rona Graff, made a brief appearance on the witness stand Friday. When court wrapped for the week, the prosecution was questioning Gary Farrow, former senior managing director at First Republic Bank. Farrow, who was former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen's banker in 2016, could be used to bring in email evidence about the payment to Daniels. CNN reported Cohen used money from his home equity line to cover Daniels' payment, and an email from a First Republic Bank employee confirmed the transfer. So friends, why do I say the testimony of Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels might end up being some of the most damning evidence in the eyes of the jury? Because after all, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels didn't falsify business records. And remember, that's what Donald Trump is indicted for. Those are the criminal charges. 34 counts of felony falsification of business records to try to gain unfair advantage in the 2016 presidential election, falsifying business records that represent violations of campaign finance laws. Now, neither Karen McDougal nor Stormy Daniels falsified those business records, so they're not directly incriminating in their testimony. But here's the thing, friends. The trial is about to pit Donald Trump against Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. You just heard Donald Trump in that USA Today reporting maintain he had no encounter, no relationship with Stormy Daniels. And in fact, he's always maintained he had no relationship with Karen McDougal. Now, remember, he paid these women hundreds of thousands of dollars in combination to keep them quiet, to keep them from telling their stories about their encounter and their relationship with him, and yet he is maintaining they're all just absolutely false stories. Never happened. You know, a man could go broke paying off people that he didn't have a relationship with. But as I say, this trial will now pit Donald Trump against Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. Did you see Karen McDougal's interview with Anderson Cooper? She talked about her 10-month-long relationship with Donald Trump. She talked about how she was in love with him and he was in love with her. And goodness knows what those two talked about during those 10 months, but we're about to hear whatever Donald Trump said to Karen McDougal that might potentially be relevant to this case. We're going to hear from Karen McDougal about that. And the jury will draw all important credibility determinations about who's telling the truth, Karen McDougal or Donald Trump and his lawyers, who will, demonize these women as, I guess, being liars, even though Donald Trump was in a conspiracy with David Pecker and Michael Cohen to pay off Karen McDougal, and then went on to pay off Stormy Daniels in yet another conspiracy when David Pecker said, "Bank is closed. I paid off a doorman for a story. I paid off Karen McDougal for a story," all to help Donald Trump in his election, all to help Donald Trump avoid deeply damaging information from coming out and hurting his candidacy. But he wouldn't do it for Stormy Daniels, so that's when Michael Cohen took out a line of credit on his home and paid off Stormy Daniels at the direction of and for the benefit of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump started writing Michael Cohen reimbursement checks, disguising them as payment for legal services, falsifying business records. So if the jury believes the testimony of Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels about their encounters and their relationship with Donald Trump, those jurors are going to be looking at Donald Trump and saying to themselves, he can't even admit his relationships, that he ended up paying these women hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep quiet. He can't even admit to those. This man, his stock in trade is deception, is concealment, is lying. And even though the evidence is not directly relevant to falsifying business records, the criminal charges in the case, it is going to be deeply damaging because, friends, you've heard me say I'm not a betting man. I'm not a high roller. $1 is my betting limit. I'll put the full buck on the jury believing both Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, in part because Donald Trump felt compelled to enter into a criminal conspiracy to cover up the information they had by paying them each in excess of $100,000. Who does that if he doesn't have a relationship with those women? And this jury will see Donald Trump and his lawyers attack these women on cross-examination, demean them, and they will be drawing all important information from that testimony about who Donald Trump is and what he does and how, even when he's caught red-handed, he can't bring himself to be even minimally honest, truthful, forthcoming. So their testimony may not be directly incriminating on the falsifying business records front, but it will be extremely damning in the eyes of the jury. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.